Hello and welcome back to Tiny Artist TV. For today's video, I'm going to be continuing the 115 character creation challenge / color palette challenge, and this will be the last spooky group. So the first few I did a set of 3 and a set of 3. To keep this moving along, I'm going to do a set of 4 for this video, so that will finish out the preliminary spooky vibes for October, because again in October I'm going to be doing a different series where, I know I'm not going to tell you, you can just wait until October to find out, but I'm going to be doing something different, and then I will be returning back to the color palette challenge in November. But for now, let's go ahead and see what colors I will be working with today. So again, here's the newly revised, condensed, if you will, color palette selection. So instead of doing 1 through 115, I'll be doing 1 through 72, because we're about at the little less than halfway point, so this is where we currently are. So first one is going to be number 30, Plant Papa, and I will mark these in red. Now let's see. Number 2 is going to be 54, Black Raspberries. Oh, I forgot to mark it. Okay, so now let's see what number 3 is. It's number 27, Gyarados, and there's my bucket. And the last one for today's video and the spooky group is going to be number 19, Ariel. Okay. So my thought process is like, oh, it would be too easy to do like a Halloween costume Ariel, but I have something else in mind, so let's go ahead and get started. Just for context, this is the original Plant Papa. The color palette was named that because this was what I'd used for one of my Saturday morning shuffles. I'll put the link right here in the top corner, and then of course I'll also link it below if you would like to watch that video. But yeah, so now I have to take this color palette that I used to make this sweet old plant-loving Papa and turn it into something horrific. Wish me luck. Now, I will say horrific might be a bit of a stretch, since I'm not doing full-on horror for these particular set of characters. I'm just more trying to evoke spookiness or unsettledness, because the full-blown horror is going to be coming up. But for this one, I thought of, okay, what is something that's kind of earthy and spooky? And so I kind of thought of a witch doctor. Now, I know that there are like actual practicing witch doctors throughout the world, and so I didn't want to do anything that was like necessarily like offensive to people who practice things of that nature. There was just this kind of, just this sort of like, again, earthy spookiness that I was trying to evoke. So I just kind of created this character that had the vibe of like, sort of like, I don't know, Scooby-Doo Zombie Island sort of character. And she's more of a, that's what I called her. That's what I ended up calling her, was a spirit caller, not a witch doctor. And so she has her skull of smoke and spirits where she keeps these spirits and uses them to guard her property. I guess she's more akin to a hag than, truly a witch doctor. But again, categorizing her as a spirit caller than anything else. And so I did have to cheat with the color palette just a little bit, but as you can see, they're colors that are within the range of colors that I had. So I take the brown, the darkest brown, this sort of like warm mocha hot chocolate taupey color, and just push that down a little bit to get the brown of her shirt. And then I needed some bone tones, so I took the lighter brown and just pushed that a little more towards the yellow. So I did end up adding a couple extra colors, which at this point I'm okay with. When I started this color palette challenge, I was kind of coming in with the idea of like being very purist, like, no, I'm only using these colors. And now I'm kind of facing the fact that, okay, with the characters I'm drawing, sometimes I am going to need a little extra help, as long as the colors of the color palette are at the main forefront. There's a lot that I do off screen to finish this character because I wasn't super confident in the direction that I was going with finishing the character. And I was kind of in a headspace of, I don't want to waste your time showing you a bunch of messing around and putting things on and taking things off. So I finish it off camera, and here is the finished result. My next victim, of course, is the color palette Black Raspberries. So for this color palette, my first immediate thought was, oh, this is very vampiric. And then I let that sit and warp. It's like, okay, well, maybe what if I do a werewolf with red eyes? And then as I started drawing the werewolf turned into a bear, which turned into a zombear, which turned into nothing at all. So what I actually ended up doing, there are a few videos where I've talked about this before. I have a little writing project that my husband and I have been working on for some time. It's not really going anywhere at the moment, but it's basically a homebrew D&D setting for our characters. And one of the pieces of that homebrew is the Cult of the Black Elk. And I've brought it up more recently in one of my Saturday morning shuffles with one of the priests of the Black Elk. Typically, well, I guess he was more of an intern, because only women can be high priestesses, high elders of the Black Elk. So I saw this and I was like, oh, well, this is a drow skin tone. I can work with this. And I know typically they have, whitish, grayish, or like lavender hair, but this is what I had to work with. So she has black hair, which makes sense considering that part of the uniform is a lot of black and red. So this is a drow priestess of the Cult of the Black Elk. And that's all I gotta say about that. There's not a whole lot of other brain cells going into this. A lot of the ideas are actually recycled from my Dever Call picture. And I know that name means nothing to anybody who's watching this, but Dever Call is like the main priestess for this cult. And the earrings and necklace and even the fur collar, I kind of took that idea from my initial drawing, thinking like, well, maybe that's part of the uniform because I really like the way those looked. And it also gave me more places to put that sort of berry color, aside from having to do like some sort of red light source, which normally would come from the crystallized elk hearts that they used as divine ? Focuses. And so I thought about perhaps doing a few floating like elk heart shards around her, but I really wanted the focus to just be on the character, so I let that thought go into the waste bin. And yeah, this was pretty straightforward as far as idea to execution. Am I completely happy with it though? I like the line art. At this point, so I don't always do these videos in order. Sometimes I'll do one drawing first and then I'll do like the last color palette. Like, it just depends on how the ideas form. So this actually ended up being the last drawing out of this set of 4 that I did for the video. And I was kind of over it. I was kind of over it by the time I got to it. I do put effort into like actually finishing this piece, but by the time I get to the finished result, I know that I could spend more time making it better. But also, I was over it. And so, at the very least, I kind of solidify the idea that I was going for, like, she's out in the woods in the moonlight in the middle of the night doing this ritual with this deer skull. But to me, this is still, it's more of a refined or polished sketch than an actual finished piece. If I had to give this a rating out of 10 or a letter grade would be more accurate. Well, I can do both. A letter grade, honestly, I would give it a C+. If this was something I was doing maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe I would rate it higher, but this is akin to work that I was doing 5-10 years ago. It's not bad, but it's not up to where some of my other stuff is. And I think it's just a result of me being tired by the time I worked on it and wanting to get something in the video. Yeah, rating out of 10, I would give it a 6.5, which I think is akin to like a C+. But here is the finished Black Elk Priestess of the Black Elk Cult of Ishvai. Yeah, moving on to the next one. This next portion of the video is like 80% sketch and line art before I even get to the coloring. So guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn this into a teachable moment. And of course, this is mostly directed to people who actually want to learn how to do line art, and not to the community of artists who complain about how much they hate line art. Stop it. If you don't like doing line art, don't do it. Just skip it. Just go to the painting phase. You can do that without bashing other parts of the art process. But if you're like me and you love the refinement phase of your drawings, then this is for you. So here's the best advice I can give as far as starting on refining your line art journey. Spend as long as you need to on the sketch. For this piece, I spent so much time just working on the sketch and figuring out details. The sketch phase is where you get out all of your ideas. It's where you refine where you want to place things. And the reason why a lot of people prefer their sketch over doing line art is because sketches exist in sort of a weird, somewhere between a liminal space and Schrodinger space, whatever you want to terminology it, of there are multiple solutions, whereas with line art you are condensing it down to one solution. So you can see here, when I'm moving on to particular parts, I'm looking for a particular texture. That's another big thing. With your line art, you want to have a brush that's going to do what you need it to do. Most of my sketch, or most of my line art, I use the Sino brush because it has a nice, clean, swoopy thing going on with it. But for the clouds in this particular drawing, I want something with a little more crunch to it. So I have downloaded brushes that specifically give me that crunchiness. So if you want your line art to evoke a particular effect, like whether or not you want it to look like smooth ink drawing or whether you want it to look like crunchy paper, as far as clip is concerned, there's probably a brush for it. There's probably several brushes for it. I actually have downloaded several brushes that do kind of the same thing. You saw me testing out swatches up top there, which is basically just to text out what grit of brush do I want to use for these clouds, and I'm also using it for the skulls so that the skulls have a little bit of that crunchy dankness to them too. So the other part about refining your line art, this part just takes practice, especially if you have jittery hands, is moving your hand confidently along the sketch. And this is why the longer you spend on the sketch, the better your line art is going to turn out. Because if you're refining your sketch before you get to your line art anyway, your lines are going to just come more naturally because you already have that muscle memory built in from working over a particular area in your sketch. That's my basic advice, is just practice your confidence with your lines and work with a brush that's going to do what you need it to do. If you have any other questions about line art, if you want me to do a full line art tutorial, I mean, I can do kind of an extended explanation of it and just kind of walk you guys through that, but yeah, let me know in the comments if you would want me to do just a full line art tutorial, because I love line art and I would love to do that for you guys. But now we're moving on to the coloring phase of this imp toy demon thing. I'm not quite sure where the inspiration for this character came from. I just saw these colors and I was like, this looks like it's very not serious. So I knew it wasn't going to be a super spooky character, but I wanted to at least try to push the spook factor a little bit. And so here is my gyroscoping imp demon toy thing. Also, I'm sorry that there's not more footage of me actually working on it. During the middle of working on this particular illustration, we experienced a slight power outage and I freaked out and saved and closed everything down, so when I came back to it, I just decided to work on it off camera because I didn't want to have to worry about saving and quitting several programs in order to not lose the drawing. So, moving on. If you had to guess what the next character was inspired by, what would you guess? And I'm laughing because I'm becoming a creature of habit. I've drawn another candy girl. However, she's not strictly she doesn't really have any candy accessories aside from her look. Her look is very gummy, very shiny, and that's partially because she's an octopus. But I was inspired by a mix of the trolley octopus gummies, and then also, for some reason, I had peach rings on my mind. But they come in different flavors. They have like apple rings and blue raspberry rings or whatever. So I was thinking, okay, I'm already doing an octopus rings. Well, I'll do a leopard octopus candy girl. So even though she doesn't have any candy on her per se, like the other candy girls do, they have, you know, the gingerbread and the lollipops and all of this, that she is a candy girl in spirit, and she is canonically part of the Candy Girls lineup. So here we go. This character took several sketches to get to. I'm not showing you the other sketches because they're hot dog garbage. And that's not me trying to hide stuff from you guys. You know I'll usually show you the drawing process, warts and all, but this video has 4 characters in it, so it's already pushing a pretty, like, it's pushing a longer timestamp than what I usually work with. So choices were made, but we got here eventually after several sketches and some rest. She does also kind of have magical girl vibes. I can definitely see her maybe teaming up with the jellyfish girl that I drew way back when, like 30 characters ago. But overall, I just kind of wanted to make her this sort of Cthulhu-inspired candy girl. I kept trying to find places to add more octopus stuff, and I suppose I could have made the skirt have more squid things, but I did that with my alien girl, and in hindsight it works for her, but I feel like if I did that for this character it would have been too busy. I wanted the emphasis to be on her and not necessarily everything going on around her. I wanted them to be complements and accessories. And so I do a little squiddliness with her boots, and that's about where I call it. Her eyes are octopus eyes. They have really cool, weird, like, aquatic goat eyes, if you will. And then, of course, with the inspiration being candy rings and leopard octopus, I eventually do some candy-colored leopard rings on her hair tendrils, which you'll see here. Initially, when I was working with this color palette, I thought about using red as the main color just to be sort of subversive, because the color palette's name is Ariel. These colors are straight up Ariel's tail, hair, and bra. Like, there is no denying it. And so I was thinking, how would I subvert that for myself to make it easier to get out of a headspace around an Ariel type character. And eventually I just kind of made peace with like, no, if I do red as the main color, like let's say for instance, I made her skin red instead of blue, like this really pretty jelly teal color, I think it would have been too potent, because that red it's like a neon red. It's like a hot red, and I like what I've done with it, just using it as accents because it stands out well enough on its own. When I thought of the idea of doing Octopus character, I knew I wanted to make her hair purple. I don't know why, it just seemed like the most logical thing. So if I made her hair purple, I couldn't make her skin red because then there would be too much surface area conflict, because they are so like close to each other. It would just read as one big hot colored blob. So I submitted and went with a green aquatic skin, and I really like the way she turned out. I think she's super cute. And as far as a rating out of 10, I haven't been doing this too often, but a rating out of 10, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I do actually plan on, when I'm done with the 115 characters, I do plan on making a tier list. So you have that to look forward to in a few months. But until then, that's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you in the next video. So until then, have a weird day.